welcome all of you to the Institute for Spirituality and Health. And we have a wonderful speaker. I'll introduce him in just a moment. But I've got a couple of things I want to mention to you. The food was prepared and given freely to you all. And if you wish to make a contribution, it would be appreciated, though. And there's a basket that's available for you in the back there. I want to mention there are a couple of events coming up. One of them is what's called a post-traumatic growth seminar, which will take place not this Saturday, but the next one. It should be very excellent. We do need to get people registered for that, or we will not be able to do it. We have a small number, but we're bringing in a special speaker from Austin, and to justify for them to come, we need to have, of course, people here. So if you're interested in post-traumatic growth, what that is, anybody who's had a big trauma in their life, grieving, find trouble getting over it, or it keeps visiting an emotional stress in your life, it'd be great to come to that conference. And there are some handouts back there which you can pick up, and it has all of that information on it. You can register, of course, by calling the office here or going online. Actually, you can't go online today because our website is down. It's down, and we're trying to get it back going. We have two major conferences every year. One of them is for the nurses, and that's on October the 19th. And then on November the 16th, we have a Psychotherapy and Faith Conference, which are both of them are well attended. Large conferences at St. Paul's Methodist Church is where it's located, and they're on Fridays and on those particular days, and you can register for those as well. You'll be blessed there. What I'm going to do next Thursday is begin a series of talks on integrating spirituality related to healthcare. And what we're doing, the first talk is on the call to medicine and healthcare. You know, what is the call about? What does it mean to be called to a profession of any kind, but also particularly to a medical profession? So even people that have already, by the way, we did a survey, and 85% of the physicians in the Harris County Medical Society that we surveyed said they felt they had a call upon their life to go into medicine. So it's a worthy thing for us to explore, even people that are already in healthcare, to look at their own call and to experience it in a deeper way. We're also having 6 talks on world religions. So they'll always be on a Tuesday from October the 2nd to November the 6th. So you can look at all those in the handouts and be a part of them. I'm learning how to speak Indian of some sort. What is it?
Sanskrit.
Sanskrit. Okay, I'm going to try this. Anyamat Prisaka Swami. I may not have done that right, but that's his name. That's his wonderful Professor Hubert Robertson is here. He's currently the visiting professor from the Institute of Oriental and Occidental Classical Studies at the Ricardo Palmer University in Lima, Peru. He's also Secretary General for the North American Institute of Oriental and Classical Studies, and based in Tennessee, right here in the United States. He has repeatedly organized and presented at premier institutions around the world. He has done programs that have included in the invitation of Nobel laureates, such as Charles Towns and Sir John Eccles and the Dalai Lama. He was the chief guest speaker at a landmark national seminar of science and technology in ancient India. It was organized at Calcutta University in 2001. He's still giving lectures, traveling, thankfully, so that we have him here today. But his principal interest right now is writing, in order to really explain the intricacies of meditation and contemplation, in order that those things that are necessary for us to cultivate our human spirit and come to wholeness. His lecture today, Swami's lecture today, is Medicine and Spirituality, the Classic Indian Perspective. Please give a warm welcome to Swami.
Hello? So it reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. Don't look behind the curtain. I am the wizard. Okay, yeah. Yeah, actually I was born on Guam. Anybody else here born on Guam? Like that? Okay. It's an island in the Pacific Ocean. My parents were there at the end of World War II. And I came back to the U.S. I was about this big, or this big, depending how you look at the thing. And my mother's side were pioneers in Arizona. So as a little child, I was there in Prescott. And I always, whenever I go back to Arizona and stuff like that, I feel, my body feels, this is it, like hot weather, space, sunshine. And then I grew up Southern California, Northern California, and went to University of California at Davis, that campus. It's a veterinary medicine campus. And I started in electrical engineering. I was building radios. And I changed to biological engineering, and I graduated in psychology. Okay? So it was a gradual investigation like that. And then I started, actually I graduated first place in psychology in California. So I started a doctorate in Northwestern in Chicago. And it turned out my mentor was Donald Campbell, who was actually president of the American Psychological Association. So actually, in talking to him and everything else, he said, yeah, this whole Western thing and what you're doing is basically for making money. And the whole thing is really a career track for making money. He said, if you really want to investigate something, a little different, all the robots going here, yeah, okay, yeah, then you should get out of this. And there's so many other ways of knowing things in the world, So because of him, actually, I got impetus at that time to investigate different things. And I got a black belt in Okinawan karate, which I learned a lot about energy flow in the body. I learned a lot about that. And eventually I came in contact with these yoga traditions. And specifically somebody asked us this because actually the word yoga comes from the Sanskrit word yukta, which means to connect, right? And the word... The word religion we can take as re ligare, right? Or like a ligament, ligament. So it means to reconnect also, re ligare, to reconnect. So the word religion, religate, or yoga means the same thing, just to get back in connection. Because now we're not in harmony with our family. We're not in harmony with our society. We're not in harmony with our education, with the environment. So we have to reconnect. So that's what yoga means, like that. But of course, what are the limits? How far could your yoga take you, like that? That you're just, one idea of religion or something is honor amongst thieves, right? You rob over there, I'll rob over here, and that's ethics and morality. But no, let's go a little higher than that. And try and we're not going to be thieves. Let's try and cooperate. And so, how high can we go? How far does the yoga take us? Just the body, or is the mind also engaged? Do we learn techniques of meditation, contemplation, humility, humor? So many psychological qualities like that. And beyond that, of course, then is the big question: is there a soul or not? Okay, is there a soul or not? So you have a whole paper written up here, but many times I've learned these are useless because you see the audience and you think, okay, forget the paper. But I think it's kind of useful, so on. Yeah. So the question is then, actually, supposedly at one time, because when Buddha is actually a Hindu. It's just like Jesus is a Jew, okay? So Buddha was a full part of this whole Hindu tradition. Actually, the word Hindu is a Muslim word. When the Muslims were invading India from Arabia, they came to the river Sindh. Now, in the Arabic pronunciation, this would be Hind. So the best investigation is that everybody across the river Sindh were all Hindus. You're all Christians. I'm a Jew. No, you're all I don't care. So it's a very, what's the word, modern word in some ways like that. And pretty much it's a geographic word. But many people in India then would characterize our position very commonly amongst the indigenous people themselves would be Sanatan Dharma, or the word Dharma like that. and very much connected to the original Vedas, the original text like that. You know? So there is a consistency amongst this geographic area and philosophical and religious and spiritual tradition, you know, for thousands and thousands of years. Just like, you know, somebody can be a Lutheran, okay, but you know, before that, this tradition was Catholic, and before that, it was Jewish, like that, you know. And then you go back to the Kabbalah, then you go back to the Mishra. So yeah, so there are different. Our tradition is specifically, of course, an Indian tradition like that, and so on. So Buddha appeared in this tradition about 500 BC, before Christ. And it was a very controversial time about what is reality, what is life. You know. Socrates, I have quotes from him. Socrates' problem was that he was telling people philosophy means to really ask this question about what happens when you die. But at that time, most people, their presentation was, no, philosophy means to live a good life in this world, you know, how to, you know, what's the word now? A lot of philosophy is aimed at mathematics for developing computer systems, like that, topology, like that, and so on. But Socrates said, no, philosophy means the big questions. Why do we suffer? What is life? What is possible? What is death? And he was living a very simple life then. He wasn't striving for rich clothes and going to the proper bathhouse in Athens and everything else. The night he would just lie down and take his clothes and sleep, and get up, put them back on, and go back to the market and talking with people everywhere. You know, if you have a very nice biography on the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Has a very nice biography of Socrates, because in many ways he's the one line. There's the Christian line, and then there's a classical line. And if you read Shakespeare, you see both are mixed. The Queen of England had no problem hearing about classical philosophies and Christian philosophy side by side. You know, and so on. So you see these pictures of Socrates on the internet, you know. But everybody agrees, all of his biographers, he wasn't like a handsome, ugly philosopher. He was an ugly philosopher. His nose was either pushed down or pushed up, and you can't quite figure out which it was, you know. And his eyeballs bulged out so much you could actually look behind him like that, you know. So he was ugly. But all these children of all these rich people were starting to follow him like that, and actually renounce their wealth, everything else like that. And so their parents were becoming disgusted, embarrassed. So they tried to figure out some way to get Socrates out of town like that, you know. And so finally they said, oh, you know, with this introduction of logic and reason and these kind of things, you're actually minimizing the respect for the gods. And pretty much there was monotheism in the Greek culture, but it pretty much a pantheistic idea. Zeus, Hera, Indra, Varuna, it's like the Sanskrit side now, Neptune, Pluto, very similar to the pantheon in India also. So he said, okay, you're training our youth in these blasphemous ideas of logic and reason and introspection and renunciation, like that. You know, so we're going to take you to the court. And so that the biographers say that pretty much it's obvious that Socrates had no real interest in like placating anybody, and he was completely, you know, forthright and forthspoken during the entire trial and made everybody more irritated. So then finally after that, then there's a dialogue before the trial, a dialogue during the trial, a dialogue after the trial. And finally, of course, the most famous is the Phaedo. And the Phaedo is a dialogue when he's actually in the prison, and the final time has come for him to take the poison, the hemlock, like that. But the actual decision is, which is the common decision, okay, you're guilty of this crime. Now, according to the law, either you have to be executed for this crime, or else you can promise to leave Athens and never come back. Now, they were sure that was the option he was going to take. His opponents really never had any idea of really killing the guy. You know? But he refused. He said, no, if you found me guilty of this, you know, then I should be killed. Well, this promised to go away. No. Another problem. Yeah. So, I have a little citation here. Socrates talking about death. Because he's there, and the hemlock is ready, and now it's finally time to take this. And all of his students and everything else are saying, hey, you know, we don't even have to sneak you out. It's not a matter of distracting the jailkeeper and running away with you. If you just say, I promise I'll never come back, we can walk out the door, and we'll go to some other town, and we'll follow you, and it'll all be very nice, you know. So here's a quotation then from the Phaedo. It's online. And now, O my judges, talking to his students, I desired to prove to you that the real philosopher has reason to be of good cheer when he is about to die, and that after death he may hope to obtain the greatest good in the other world. And how this may be, simius and sedis, I will endeavor to explain. For I deem that the true votary of philosophy is likely to be misunderstood by other men. That's my place. They do not perceive that he is always pursuing death and dying. And if this be so, he has had the desire of death all his life long. Why, when his time comes, should he be repine in that which he has always been pursuing and desiring? So for today, this was pretty much our thesis, right? That this real contrast exists between many Oriental systems of medicine and modern medicine. Whereas in modern medicine, the idea, I guess I go on here, okay. Okay, then also I have a quotation from Albert Camus, our Nobel laureate. Why not? This is from Robert de Lupe's biography. The Myth of Sisyphus, one of Camus' most principal works, and The Rebel, another one, contain the essential thought of Camus. Camus opens the book, The Myth of Sisyphus, on this theme, suicide. It is given pride of place since it serves to express the author's own beliefs. Quote, to take one's own life implies that one has recognized, even if instinctively, the absurd nature of everyday habit, the absence of any deep reason for living, the senseless nature of daily activity, and the pointlessness of suffering. Like that. But Camus himself rejected suicide. The Myth of Sisyphus, the idea is that to live is a challenge to the absurdity of it all. I will just go on living, just to what's it? Rage into that dark night, and so on. That was this kind of a heroic challenge to the absurdity of life and everything else, like that, and so on. So my point in bringing these up is that this is not like a foreign consideration. That many people in Western philosophy and Western history have considered death a very great opportunity. Right? Whereas much of my experience dealing with physicians and medicine, modern medicine and everything else is, I'll go on here, I think I've written down. So we start our deliberations with what for some will be a very radical position. In modern thought, the idea can be that medicine is to allow us to live comfortably and for longer and longer, even aiming at immortality in this current physical body. Right? However, like Socrates, we suggest that there is a predominant feature, though we recognize not the only perspective, that this world is not our home. In Bhagavad Gita 13:8-12, Sri Krishna advises Arjuna that one of the essential elements in acquiring knowledge, wisdom, is to contemplate scrutinizingly the evil of birth, death, disease, and old age. The Sanskrit is Janma Mritya Jara Vyadi Dukkadosha Nudarshana. He continues to say that this world is Dukkalayam Ashashvatam, an unpredictable place of distress, like that. And it's basically the idea that it's awarded for our reformation. You have some problem. Your parents are functional alcoholics. You grow up with so much violence in your character, always in trouble. You got this idea that life's tough and you got to get others before they get you. Okay, so you end up in prison, right? But then actually somehow or other you have this change of heart, change of perspective, and you realize this is not a bad place. I know I can't control myself. I know that. If I go outside now, I'm going to cause problems. So here I have a regulated life, a controlled life, and I won't cause any more problems for anybody like that. And also as a free psychologist, and I need that. I mean, my father never physically, not me, it's a story now. My father never really, beat me or anything much, but I know from the time I was first walking until in his care, I was always emotionally harassed to the point where I have deep emotional scars like that. So I need a psychologist. You know? And I'm going to go. I'm going to solve these problems. I'm going to forgive my father. And also, okay, my mind's okay and everything else, but how am I going to make any money when I go out? I've never been able to get a good job or anything else. Oh, there's occupational training in the prison. You know? This is a good place. I don't want to stay here forever, but for me, this is it. This is a good place. So that's the idea in the Vedic perspective, many perspectives. This material world is a reform school. It's a mental hospital. If you speak Spanish, manicomia, which means like nut house. Yeah. Everybody here is crazy. Okay? Raise your hand if you raise your pen if you have mental problems. Yeah. And then then from the Vedic perspective, the Indian perspective is very, very profound in terms of dealing with this very analytically, very scientifically. We've organized these programs with Nobel laureates, with scientists. Charles Towns, we did 2 programs with him. He invented the laser, like that. Very respected scientist, you know. And they appreciate that this is one thing I think that the Indian culture has to have, where it surpasses our Oriental religious system to a large degree, because it gives us very scientific, you know, system, which originally was executed through the Sankhya systems of meditation, you know, which is Ashtanga Yoga, right? Patanjali, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, and different systems of going through, get the tension out of your body through the asanas, don't smoke, don't drink, get up early, whole system. And these systems can very, very easily be compared to, what's his name, the Jesuit. Who's the head of the Jesuits? Who's the head of the Jesuits, the founder of the Jesuits? Huh? No, I forgot his name. Ignatius, Ignacio Loyola. He had a whole system of several days. They aren't exactly days because they can go longer, but it was called day 1, day 2. And it's still a very practical thing, practiced through Jesuits with guidance for this technique of introspection and development of this higher consciousness. St. Teresa of Avila, of course, is very famous, you know, for her system. If you met her, you would think that, you know, she's very, very kind of jolly nun. If you met her like the way her writing's like that, very friendly and jolly. But you can tell that, you know, if you get out of line, you know, she can put you right back in line again too. You know. So she said she was asked by her bishop to write something for the girls about in the process of self-realization. So she compared it to a crystal house, a castle made completely of crystal. And the first place is where we go in the courtyard. And this is where people come to sell. There's a flea market. They come and they go. And there's some guards there to keep a certain order like that. So that's the first level of religion. You know, you go a certain level. And you like that. It's easier, it's comfortable. You don't want to go to the more disciplined level and taking more responsibility. He said, but you know you have to give up this and become more disciplined in life. And that's where you go inside the crystal palace, you know. And then she describes these different levels, you know, to higher and higher levels like that. And so the other person is Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, Saint Bernard de Clairvaux. These are available on the internet, very nice. He has a series of lectures on the Song of Solomon, which is this very esoteric, erotic, you know, poem in the Bible. It starts with something like, kiss me with the kiss of your lips, right? Okay. But he says, well, yeah, that's there. You can kiss God with the kiss of the lips. But said, before that, let's try and start with the kiss of the feet, like that. Get down and please forgive me. I've done everything horrible. I don't deserve any kind of help, but you're so kind you've given it to me. You know? And he said, after that, then we start to become more trustworthy. We you know, do the proper thing. So next is the kiss of the hand, where the master says, okay, I've got a little bit difficult task for you. This letter has to get to this place by 5 o'clock. Can you do it? And you take his hand and you say, yes, sir. You count on me. But finally, when we get to this level of intimate concentration, contemplation, then the rapture, and the intimacy comes where there's no, you know, where God gives himself in trust to the servant at that point. So very much in Christian tradition, no? There are very much descriptions of these levels of spiritual development and systems, processes, you know, to go through these things. Not just to, you know, to, what is it, take care of the dead body and a few things like this and that and so on, but actually to these higher levels of non-material spiritual existence like that. So then we come to the question Socrates was asking. Because Socrates, he said there is a soul, and the soul goes to a higher place. He said, I'm not completely sure, I still have a few doubts, but far and away, this is where obviously this really is the most sane proposition, that we're not going to be finished, and what we've done in this life is going to be judged. So you better do the right thing, like that, and so on. So with Buddha, when they asked Buddha this question, because at that time, in Buddha's time, it was also a big controversy. Do we eat, drink, and be merry? Because tomorrow we die. Eat, drink, and eat and drink with merry, and don't worry about your kidneys, because we got dialysis. Like that. Don't worry about your teeth. We got false teeth. Don't worry. Yeah, okay. But that's medicine to some degree, right? To give so many medical systems to prolong longevity, so we can go on eating and drinking and being merry. Viagra, right to the very end, we can enjoy it all like that. Yeah. But Socrates, Buddha, Saint Bernard de Clairvaux, Teresa of Avila, they're all telling us something else. Like this, that this world is just a temporary place, right, where we get it together for that ultimate moment, right? We shouldn't try and die early. Right? We shouldn't try and die late, right? We should try and die at the right time when the bus comes in. When the bus comes to the thing, the right bus. This one's going to hell. This one's going to Texas. This one's going to California, like Delhi. Okay. This one says spiritual world. We got our ticket. The guy says, okay. This is the bus. You get on. So that's the idea that death is a great opportunity. And so therefore, it's not something to be feared, right? That's a great stupidity. It's something to be looked forward to if you're ready. Okay, so let's quote from Hamlet now. Eclectic lecture here, of course. Yeah. What is the question? Huh?
To be or not.
Yeah. All over the world, everybody knows this. To be or not to be. That is the question. It's an identical question with Bhagavad Gita. Like that. Yeah. To either try and Hamlet's being faced with a very difficult situation. He's come back from Paris from school. Why? Why did he come back? Why did he come back to Denmark? What happened? Remember? His father died. His father died. That's what the news was. The news was his father died. So he came back, and not only did his father die, who he loved, great heroic person, his uncle, very much like the Lion King, his uncle, who was like just an inferior person in many ways, had become the king. And not only that, but his mother, who I guess was a younger wife, had been remarried, her brother-in-law. When his friend Horatio comes, Hamlet says, why did you come? He said, I came to honor the funeral of your father. And Hamlet says, oh, no, you've come to honor the marriage of my mother. He said, well, they did. One did follow the other pretty quickly, the funeral and the marriage. And Hamlet said, no. The cooked meats at the funeral feast did but do double duty as cold cuts at the wedding feast. It was quick. Before the meat was dead, so in the process of the drama, he has one queen, one player, one actress saying something to investigate everybody's reaction. So in this drama within the drama, the queen tells her husband, he says, I'm going to die soon, and you should get remarried and this and that, and be happy, you're young. And she says, no. Any woman who remarries, right, and kisses a second man in bed, kills the first one twice. Yeah. very, very intense. This is our classical heritage, no? Let's get back to it. Hamlet, Socrates, and also take advantage of other classical cultures. Because we need, it's another paper I did for another conference, Carl Jung, everybody makes this point, we don't make decisions on the basis of logic. We make them primarily on the basis of archetypal images, of what is good, who is the hero, that are deep in our souls and stuff like that. Of course, in our Western tradition, Jesus Christ, for so many years was the hero, for so many people, and people who followed him like that. But of course, in Greece, we have Socrates, who's remained a hero, and for There's so many years like that. So anyway, Hamlet comes to the conclusion that his father didn't die. He was murdered, by his uncle. And so after coming to this conclusion, he sees him alone there, and he sees him and says, now might I do it, Pat. Okay, I got it here. Okay, yeah. Now might I do it, Pat. Now that he is praying. And so he goes to heaven. And so I am revenged? That would be scanned. A villain kills my father, and for that, I, his sole son, do the same villain sin to heaven. This is not revenge. This is hire and salary. He took my father grossly full of bread, with all his crimes full blown, as flush as May. And how my father's audit stands, who knows, save heaven. But in our circumstance and course of thought, 'tis heavy with him. And am I then revenged to take his murderer in the purging of his soul? Because he's praying. He sees his uncle praying there. Please forgive me for my murderer. Please forgive me for my queen. Like that. Am I to take my father's murderer when he is in the purging of his soul? When he is fit and seasoned for his passage? No. Up sword, and know thou a more horrid intent. When he is drunk asleep, or in his rage, or in the incestuous pleasures of his bed, at gaming or swearing, or about some act that has no relish of salvation in it. So, want to catch the right bus at just the right moment, right? This is Shakespeare's very clear idea that whatever it's not something you can make up at the last moment. Hey, I'll be a good guy. My whole life has been horrible. No, you've got to work on it like that. Okay. A gaming, swearing, or about some act that has no relish of salvation in it. Then trip him, that his heels may kick at heaven, and his soul may be as damned and black as the hell whereto it goes. This is just Shakespeare. My mother waits for her encounter. Okay. This physic, medicine, this physic but prolongs thy sickly days. It's a very clear idea of society, individual consciousness, spiritual development, and the time of death. So we found it in Socrates. We found it in, in Hamlet. And of course, in the Indian tradition, very much is contemplation. It's not something we're trying to not think about. It's something we're trying to think about all the time. We're trying to live our life. Oh, you're pessimistic. Not pessimistic, but realistic. How many people here think they're going to die? You don't think so? Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's like, yeah. Is death a congenital disease in your family? No. Yeah. No. Yeah. But we don't even talk about it, right? Our whole culture is like, right now, I feel this. Okay. Yeah. It's already gone. I had very much opportunity to have like what was called prosthetic, artificial thing there. But I was thinking, why do that? Why dye the hair? Why let everybody see it, right? Think about it. You're getting old, right? Yeah. Look in the mirror. Get ready for it like that. Oh, but no, there's no way. But that's the point. Yeah, there is. Yeah. And then it becomes actually very nice thing. And medicine is to help us. Medicine is a very broad thing then. It's a very broad thing then. Because it's supposed to be very much, actually it's supposed to be a tool of spirituality at that point. And it's to prolong our sickly days until we're ready, because it takes a very heroic, healthy consciousness, to make this proper transition like that. So it's kind of our whole thesis like that. And specifically, again, literature like Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, there's great discussions on these things. But practically speaking, even Indian people have lost this contact with their own tradition because of colonialism. There's so much work in South America and other places, and they're very big philosophers. We just finished a program with the Indian Museum, which is one of the biggest organizations in India, culturally and intellectually. And it was inaugurated by, we co-sponsored it, our organization. It was inaugurated by M.K. Narayanam, Mukundakant Sharma. He was former Justice of the Supreme Court of India. And the chief guest was Shyam Kumar Sen, who was former governor of West Bengal, like that. And many very good philosophers, good scientists. And the title was The Contribution of Classical India Towards Making a Better World. And the museum was astounded. They usually got 50 or 60 people for the sessions. Every session was over 100 people, like that. And now people are just clamoring to get the transcripts and everything else like that. So India has this, you know? It has this gift. In Europe, if you want good food, where can you go?
France.
Or Italy? Italy, yeah. If you want romance, where do you go?
France.
If you want good machines, where do you go?
Germany.
Okay. If you look in the Encyclopedia Britannica, all the countries are there. Only one country is to talk about the philosophy of that country. That's India. If you want machines, forget it. I accept it. Our Indian friends. I think almost every Indian car has been a collaboration with somebody else, except for the ambassador. The only place they exist now is in Bengal. Yeah, because every country has its character, every place. So America, what's America? America's a land of innovation. America's a melting pot, right? Where you can, very convenient here to take all these different cultures. Nobody's disturbed by that. And take out the best and produce something that the whole world, you Americans did it again. You know. That's a very interesting question. How many Indians here are citizens? Some are aliens. Some are, what do you call it? What's it called? Alien, some kind of alien, right? What's it called? Resident alien. It's kind of E.T. or something like that. Resident alien. Yeah. But do you really think of yourself as an American? Like that? Have I just made this decision, I'm going to be an American? Because I don't know how. My father's father, my paternal grandfather, is from Austria. Like that. So how many people here, their parents, their grandparents or their great-grandparents are not from America? Yeah, Western people. Yeah. So we're all, it's America. America's a place where different cultures come together, where we make new things for the world like that, and so on. And so we're not fit to run the world. Forget, let somebody else with an older tradition run the world. Yeah. We'll put our 2 cents worth in, but okay, it's maybe Europe or somebody figure out like old cultures and traditions like that. So in India, especially, 2 things I would say is that these epics. We did an interview about last week with Professor Ken Rose from Newport News University on the same topic, and his point was, he said, you're not going to revive these Greek traditions very much. In South America, you can do it. They still love those things. And he said, you're not going to be very successful even reviving mystic Christian traditions like that. That's his point. I don't know. That's his idea. I don't really agree with it. But he said you see that every studio, there's so many yoga studios, and usually about 80% girls in the yoga studios, and so many karate studios, which is about 80% guys. You know? Because there's so much interest in this practical speaking, Indian culture, philosophy. So he said introducing Indian epics, Indian classics, he said, is very important to solving the situation in this modern world like that. Because you know them, because they're very intense if they're presented properly. Other than that, the other thing is the Indian system does provide this very scientific way of analyzing things and going through it and seeing how, you can correspond it with different scientific methodologies and stuff like that in medicine. And see, we're not just speculating, things like that. So this is our proposition today. We're very happy to be here. We hope to work more with the Institute very much. We're organizing conferences, publications, and NEOS, our organization. I have one last copy of our publication here. Is a North American Institute for Oriental and Classical Studies, like that. And so we're very much interested in working in these kind of projects. We're getting into audiobooks now, right now. It turns out to be a very good way to approach people like that. So that's basically our thesis: to take the best from the past, from all these world cultures, and appreciate that this world is a temporary place where we're trying to get ready to return to immortality, like that. And so don't hang on. I know one lady, again, whole thing ready, one of our devotees, finally it came. She had a brain tumor. She was supposed to die within 6 months. She went on for a year, and no what's the word? No painkillers. And the whole thing, doing meditation, everything else, very deep. And finally, he was screaming. The girls come down to her, taking care of her. Where she's going. He ran up. She was blue, of course, gasping for breath, and then she subsided, came again. And so he's telling her, yelling at her, "Don't hang on, don't hang on." So she's like nodding her head. Next time she let go. It was she didn't die. The whole experience was like that, more and more detached, and more experiencing the spiritual world before she got there. And so So finally, we stop here. And any questions or comments? Yeah.
You know, the sad thing is that so many people are living into the 80s and losing their ability to appreciate what you're talking about. They get Alzheimer's, and the whole thing is over before even they get to contemplate that death is part of life.
Yeah.
So it's increasingly the case as more and more of us live longer, we lose our heads.
So I didn't quote it, but there's a whole citation by Prahlad Maharaj. He's talking to his friends in school, and the teachers are very materialistic, but during lunch he calls them together and talks to them about spiritual life in the Vedas. And he said we should worry about these things. We should develop spiritual consciousness. And his young friends, they say, "No, Prahlad, when we're old, we'll do that." And he said, "But who knows how long you're going to live?" And he said, "When you're children, you're playing. When you become a young man, you're a woman, you're infatuated with sex attraction."
When life expectancy was small. Now,
no, it's very long.
From the other end.
No, very long. So what happens, he's saying that naturally you're distracted in childhood by play, you're distracted in youth by sex, you're distracted in your other ages by making money and progress, and then finally when you become old, you're too old to do anything about it. That's the point he's saying. So some very youth, children should be introduced to this, because it may take a whole life to get ready. Right? So what you're saying is exactly true. But we can make rapid progress even in old age. Okay? So,
how would you feel about the idea of human enhancement? That there is much talk nowadays that with nanotechnology, with all of the advances in medicine, that we will perhaps be living not 100 years, but 150 or 250 years. And there's a segment of our population that really, I think, is afraid of death and wants to extend it to forever. And I just wonder, I think that's out of touch with what you're talking about, isn't it?
No, it's exactly.
They're not really thinking on a larger scale, which would be an eternal scale. They would be looking only at life as existing right here, because they, in their minds, that's all they can count on.
It's a very nice story. Actually, I heard this from my spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, when no tape recorder was going, so I'm one of the few people who know this story he told. There's one man, he's working in the mining thing in the mountains. And so then, after his shift, hard work in the mine, sweating, all this danger, he goes to the country tavern there and sits and reads the paper and takes a little country beer, like that. So when priest walks by and sees him drinking this alcohol, he says, "You're taking alcohol, you're going to go to hell." And the guy's a little shocked, and he says, "Well, I'm a miner, I work so hard, it's so difficult, and after this work, it's like, let's relax a little bit, take a little beer." Like that. And he said, my father, he also is a miner, and he does the same thing. And the man says, "Your father is also going to hell." And the guy says, "Well, my brothers, my cousins, we all work in these damn mines, and it's so terrible. And afterwards we take a little alcohol, calm down, relax like that." The priest says, "Your whole family is going to hell." Like that. And walks off. So the man is sitting there and thinking about this, and he says, "Well, if we're all going to be there together, maybe it won't be so bad." So that's the situation. Okay, how many people here are suffering? No? How many people have some kind of problem in your body? Right now something itches someplace, like that, or no health problem? Yeah. At one time everybody, it was about 80% of people raised their hand, and they looked around about 90%. In psychology, they teach you in psychology, everybody has mental problems. Anger, lust, Everybody has either, and if it gets to a point where like it's obvious, you're neurotic. If you can't function, you're psychotic. But everybody has these problems in their mind. You're angry. You don't want to become angry, but you hate somebody. You can't control it. And what is true to the body? This in Vedic culture, the body is not. The body doesn't get diseases. The body is a disease. Right? What you're saying is, how can we figure out how I can stay in this mental hospital for 100 years? If I follow the process, I'll be out in 6 months. But I'm going to figure out a way I can stay in the mental hospital for 100 years, and I can enjoy hospital food, for 100 years. Personally, I'm going to go enjoy some other kind of food. So this is our proposition: is that you're never going to be happy here, right? It's not designed as a place for happiness. It's designed as a place for purification. And once the purification goes on, you get out. So extending the body is, again, it's like extending the term in the hospital. And again, I hate to say this, but in my experience, one of the worst foods you can get is hospital food. I don't know, is that? I don't know, maybe it's like you're not in a better diet.
Why are you so much alive? Why haven't you taken your life?
Because I've come close to death a few times by God's arrangement, and I can see that I'm a lot better off than I was before in terms of handling it. But still, I want to get a little more practice.
Why?
Because it's a big deal. Dying is quite a challenge, and not get sucked back in to another body. Give me another body. Give me another body. Socrates makes this point that the philosopher, his entire life, has to get ready for this. We're attached to. I'm attached to cigarettes. I can't stop smoking. I get free from that attachment. Okay. Now I'm attached to eating good food, even if it's a little bit too much. Okay, I get free from that. Okay. How many people here are attached to breathing? There's no air when you die. That's this Indian system goes through it very, very carefully, and you come to the point where you don't have to breathe. The soul doesn't have to breathe. It gets air from the Word of God. Okay. So like that, there's a lot to do to become detached. As Socrates says, to go and live forever with the gods. Otherwise, you'll come back in with some kind of level of attachment like that. As a plant, if you're really attached, or an animal, or a human being, or a devata. Subtle levels.
You're using the word "you" very loosely.
Yeah.
Some of your molecules maybe, but not the you that you're sensible to.
Yeah. So by yoga, by religion, by this process, I've made so much advancement in appreciating these different levels like that. At certain points, there's certain challenges in life. You can do the right thing or the wrong thing, but because of losing your position, losing my support, I'll do the wrong thing. I'll touch you a little bit. At certain times you say, no, I'm going to do the right thing. Well, maybe you'll die. Okay. So this is worth it. Yeah.
I want to add to the question which he asked. By being alive, we can do more good things for humanity as long as we are in our senses. He can preach us, he can teach us.
Yeah.
The more he lives, he can influence others and bring good to humanity. That's what.
So if we have some
good to be alive
prison
than being dead.
Again, the example of the prison or the hospital. No. Many prisoners, actually, many, but some, they go through the whole process and they want to help others. So they become psychologists, they become prison guards, and they can help a lot because they know what it was like. Actually, I interviewed for a job one time in a prison, and that's exactly what they told me. They wanted criminals, basically. People who'd been through the system and knew what it was, and then changed themselves. So the kind of questions, I guess it's almost time.
Is the Vedic tradition, what this gentleman had said, do they kind of foster that idea of, of bypassing the physical that we're in and connecting to the higher and always working on that? Do they also see that by when we do live here that we you need to be of
Yeah.
service to other humans. I mean,
This is the idea.
one of the main purposes.
Yeah,
obviously.
idea of renunciation.
Right.
One idea is just to renounce everything.
Right.
In the Sanskrit, the word is vairagya. So, nirbande krishna sambande yukta vairagya uchate. Everything is coming from a good source. God, something. Okay. So everything has a good utility. That's one of the basic principles. Yeah. Tobacco is good. As an herb, what is tobacco good for? You know? Bruises. Yeah. I know people, I mentioned that one guy, he said, yeah, my old grandfather, they would, in the South, they would chew it, put it as a plaster on a bruise, suck out all the poison. But God never expected you to smoke the stuff. So that's the problem, is that everything is good, everything has its utility, like that, and we have to, and renunciation doesn't mean to give up anything. Renunciation means to renounce using it in a selfish fashion at the expense of others. And then everything, sex, money, power, violence. Surgery is violence, but used properly, everybody pays a lot of money for it. Got me. Yeah. So that's why I said the Vedic idea is that, but in the beginning, okay, maybe a little bit of impersonalism is necessary. A little bit of like, this, saying no to the cigarettes and saying this and that. But after you get a little more advanced, and you see, no, now I can use it properly.
So is the collective? So what would be the goal in the Vedic tradition of the collective consciousness coming to this level? What's the goal? Not just for each person personally, but so we do service, we share. Everything is in service of God or Krishna or whatever.
Yeah.
But what's the collective goal?
Okay.
Of all this. Are we all just going to live in nirvana? We're all going to come.
There's this question of the individual and the community.
Right.
Karl Marx asked this question, and so many people. So, one nice example, you can look on the internet here. Nice. Go look up elephant, blind men today. What you get a very bunch of images, very, very cute images. So how many? 5 blind men heard there was an elephant coming. They didn't know what it was. So they all were running to find out. One guy ran to the side and said, "Oh, the elephant is a big wall." Another guy was next to him and hit the leg and said, "Oh, you blind man, the elephant's a tree trunk." Other guy was running past, almost went by the end, and tail hit him in the nose. He got it. He said, "Oh no, the elephant's a rope." Other guy hit the tusk and said, "Oh no, the elephant's a spear. The elephant's a big leaf. The elephant's a snake," like that. So we all have our individual lives forever, okay? But if you keep on going, there's no way you can separate yourself from the group. Sacrifice completely for the group, and you'll be okay. Sacrifice, get into your own well-being, and the group will be okay. Yeah, this is called Chinta Veda Veda Tapa, simultaneously one and difference. So the ultimately, you can't like not balance, no, 100% for both. So the goal is that we should reawaken our relationship with the Prime Being, Vishnu, God, whatever, and get in touch with Him again, like that. And simultaneously, the goal is that we should help everybody else do this also. And so as a community or a collective community, ensemble learning, improvisational theater, yeah, society learns, society is alive. America is a real entity like that in that sense. It's a society, but it's not separate. But you can't separate it from the individuals like that. So the goal of society is the same thing. That society should also be reconnected to God.
Now, so let's say if that happens.
Yeah.
Then what? I mean,
Okay,
because
God is
that
always
we will end pain and suffering and death forever,
Yeah.
and that we will all
Yeah.
be existing in this
Yeah.
state of the Garden of Eden before
Yeah.
the original sin.
Why not? Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
is it similar
Then,
in the Vedic?
For example, let's take an example here. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay. He was out with Heidi, bicycling. He saw these guys down by the river lifting weights. Some club, He saw it. It was like, bong. Incarnation. So he said, "Let's go see them, Heidi." So he's asking this, the biceps, the things, everything else. And so finally he said, "Well, Heidi, do you think you could go home alone?" "Okay, Arnold." So he just couldn't believe it. He found like that. So same way, who are we? That's the goal. That's the game, right? Who are we in terms of the supreme friend, the supreme lover, the supreme baby? There can be no baby like God. Most mischievous rascal on earth, most funny guy. And he doesn't know. That's the idea. He doesn't know like what the limit of his qualities are. He'll do something he never knew he could do before, and then his knowledge potency will figure it out. So there's always like a competition between God's expanding greatness and God's self-knowledge. Augustine also. Same way too, we don't know what we can do like that. For society, for God. I never knew I could be an administrator, but I took charge of that last project and people listened to me and I was okay, wow. Or I never knew I was a painter, right? A musician. I went from as a musician, he said, try different instruments. And I tried it and I never knew I could play musical instruments. So that's what's going on. It's a world of ever-expanding novelty and delightfulness and increasing harmony. It's growing, right? But everything is harmonious. Everything new that's added is added in a more and more harmonious fashion. And there's a lot of work to do. And so as long as we're here, we're not helping. So we should get out of here as soon as possible and go back and help there. Or if we're supposed to work in the prison, okay. You stay here and work. But at that point, you're not in the prison. If you're in the prison as a guard, there's a big difference between being in the prison as a prisoner. The guard, you just say abracadabra and the door opens. So you're part of the, you can see the spiritual perspective of that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
There's a whole book rack back there. You may want to pick up a book before you leave, and if you could, give an offering for the food. I know it would be a blessing to those who prepared it. Thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing you again at another event. Thank you.
Thank you very much.